a young man he was walking down fair London streets, when a pretty little oyster girl he chanced for to meet, and into her basket so nimbly he did peek, for to see if she had any oysters. Oh oysters, oh oysters, oh oysters, says she, 3 a tanner I'm selling them, but 4 I'll give to thee.
Borough Market is now one of the most popular tourist destinations in London, with more than 4.5 million visitors per year. Along with the many gourmet food sellers, one of the busiest stalls on the market is certainly Richard Howard's Oysters. Not only does Richard's company shuck fresh takeaway oysters to visitors from all over the world, he also supplies many top London restaurants such as Elliot's and the Wright Brothers Oyster House.
Some of the oysters we sell locally here in the company shed, retail. We've also got our own retail stall in London in Borough Market. Wholesale wise, the main market is in London because we are very close to London and London is a big place. The oysters from Mersey have got certain characteristics because of the environment again, and therefore they are a distinctive product which a lot of people appreciate and want worldwide.
Really good, really good.
We've known him on the market for a bit now, and yeah, his oysters they're amazing, and so we've been using them, I guess, year and 4 months. What I really like about them is the way that he treats them and the way that he does them himself, because I've been down to visit his little shop in that little setup area over there, and the way he takes a lot of care into doing the oysters, and yeah, they're really nice. They're always like nice plump oysters, really clean, really lovely tasting. Yeah, they're just some of the best ones I've tasted.
These much acclaimed molluscs are not from Cornwall, Scotland or the Channel Islands. They are in fact harvested on Mersey Island in Essex, only 50 miles away from Borough Market. The Romans first found oysters here 2,000 years ago, and in recent times chefs such as Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver have sourced their seafood from the island.
It was at one time a major source of employment. I mean, there were 150 boats, not all from Mersey, but a lot from Mersey, working in the river here 150 years ago. I mean, it's come down a long way since that. But there is still the oyster heritage here, and we still cultivate oysters. We don't just catch oysters and sell them. We look after them, and it's always been a very integral part of people's lives here. Sometimes people do it all the time, sometimes people go fishing some of the time, but it's part of their life, and it's become so much a part that Mersey and oysters are very closely associated.
Ryan Bradshaw met with oysterman Richard Howard and his hard-working family to learn more about Mersey Island's successful oyster industry and to find out more about the future of the business.
Yeah, the Howard family has been in oysters for 250, 300 years, and I'm the 7th generation oysterman. My eldest son, who's the 8th, takes the boat. My daughter and one of the sons, who are also the 8th, run the company shed. The boat goes out most days to dredge oysters. Sometimes it is for native oysters, but these days most of the time it's for the rock oysters, because that's what there are most of. And they'll go out and they'll be out there for probably 6 or 8 hours, and they'll bring ashore anything from 200 to 500 kilos probably. When they're out there dredging, the dredge will come up, and in the dredge there'll be oysters which are big enough to sell, some which are not big enough, which we may throw back or relay on our own grounds, and there'll be all the other stuff what's on the seabed, like shell and that, and there'll also possibly be a starfish or 2 in there which we take out because they eat oysters, because we don't just catch oysters, we look after them. And those oysters will be just boxed up and brought ashore, and then they'll be handled from there. As well as going out in the boat and dredging, we also, when the tide is low, sometimes pick oysters up off the foreshore and then bag those up, and then we go out with the boat later on and just pick those bags up and bring them in and land them. Sometimes if they're very small, we'll relay them on our own particular piece of in the creeks, our own lanes in the creeks, and leave them there to grow and fatten over a few months. When they come ashore, they're washed and graded, and they're brought down and put in what they call nowadays a depuration tank. The sump of that is filled with seawater, which is then passed over ultraviolet tubes, which kills the bugs. And the oysters being filter feed is pumped water, and if you give them the purified water for the requisite time, which is 42 hours, they then purify themselves if they need that. And then after that time, we can take them out and then put them in the boxes and send them away to our customers in London and throughout the UK and abroad in the Middle and Far East. We've got an old pocketbook which was my, I don't know how many times great-grandfather's, from about 1790 when he was actually transporting oysters to Billingsgate in London. That was as far back as we went, and then we had some more information came to light which puts us back to about 1760. And every generation since then, at least somebody has grown oysters. Sometimes, like my father, they only grew them and then sold them to other merchants to sell on. But then since that time, I've developed the selling and purification side. And so we now do the whole process from the actual catching, the cultivating, the processing, and now the retailing through the company shed and our stall in London.
My mum opened it 25 years ago, initially as a part-time venture at weekends, just selling pint of prawns, pots of cockles, a few bits of local fish out of the shop window for a few hours a day on a Saturday, on a Sunday kind of thing. It was just very much part-time, as something to see how it went really. Got quite successful, got quite a good local trade. Mum put some tables, mix and match tables, mix and match chairs, some church pews inside, just so people could sit down and eat their prawns and eat their cockles. And over the years that's just evolved, and the eating inside especially was getting more and more successful. Mum started doing seafood platters, which were very popular. Over the past year we've been in a number of national newspapers, a number of national magazines, and celebrity chefs have come down and reviewed us. People were just coming from all over the country to come and sample our oysters because they're so good, and the seafood because it's so fresh, and just because it was so simply done.
Oh, this is the best in the world. And even the Frenchmen know this. I think this is better than they can buy down there in Bordeaux.
Unfortunately, the future of the island's oyster industry is now under threat due to dwindling stocks of its most popular oyster, the Colchester native.
We've got the natives, Blackie!
Colchester natives are the oysters which were here when the Romans came, and they grow throughout northwestern Europe. But the stocks of those have gone down and down over the years for a lot of reasons, some of which we're not at all sure of. So there are not many around now. But at the same time, over the last 20 or so years, the rock oyster or Pacific oyster, which was introduced in the late 1960s and was supposed to be spawned in hatcheries and then grown on in the sea, and would never spawn here, they said, in the wild, because we now possibly get more consistently warm summer sea temperatures. They have spawned some years quite prolifically, and that is now the basis of our business.
Nice! Next step! Drop in the sea! It's not oyster!
Worldwide, oyster populations have declined 85%. In the UK, that's near a 99%. So what we've got left in the Blackwater is a fragment of what it used to be, but it's also a very important area because nowhere else has it. Now, native oyster is an incredibly vulnerable species. If we do not act now, there will be no native oyster industry in the future. We are on a knife edge at the moment, and the biology and the science is showing us that. The research that we've been doing over the last couple of years shows that if work is not done to restore, reconnect and enhance native oyster beds in the Blackwater, there won't be any native oyster beds to work with in the future.
But the old saying about native oysters is the first thing they think of doing is dying. They don't like extremes in natural conditions, and they have a lot of enemies which eat them in the sea. But we have got areas now which are closed, and where only limited work to look after the oyster is allowed. So we hope those efforts will enable the stocks to increase, but we are probably talking over a scale of 5-10 years or more before there is any marked increase in stocks, I would think. We have spent over several years now a lot of effort in many different ways, practical ways and scientific ways, to try and increase the stocks. And I would be sad if we don't get anywhere with it.
I think the future will be good as long as we're responsible about what we're doing with it. The problem with anything, and I think it shows with the fishing industry, with our world economy, is that we kind of want, and we take all the time, and we're very greedy. And I think with oysters, the problem can be that because there's been so many out there, we've just been fishing for them, and not thinking too far ahead. And I know Dad has been thinking far ahead and wanting to place that warning onto others, and maybe people haven't listened enough. So I think the future is bright, but we've got to be really, really conservative in what we do and respect nature. And remember that in the end, if we don't work with her, we'll ruin her.